Hey everybody, this is Ryan McClanahan with historythroughcards.com. Hope you're all doing very well today. So in this video, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Rochy Graziano, and this is a 1947 D. Cummings and Son. It's a tobacco card from Scotland, and I actually don't come across these all that often. The majority I see online, and I've seen a few of them here and there at shows. It's quite rare though to see these things. I don't necessarily think they are rare, but this is really the only card of Rochy Graziano that you're going to be able to afford, unfortunately. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute. If you guys haven't seen them, they look like this. They're the artwork is a little, I don't know, rudimentary. It works though, and if you're looking to pick up Hall of Famers that you might not be able to find in any other set. This is really one that you're going to want to pick up. There's a lot of Hall of Famers in this particular set. I think Ike Williams, he doesn't have too many cards, and then obviously Rochy Graziano. There's just a lot of Hall of Famers, so it's a great set if you want to try to just pick up Hall of Famers and other boxers that may not be in any other set. I'll show you the back of it. It looks something like this. So, um, it's a great card. I had kind of a difficult time trying to track it down actually, and I had to go overseas to grab one. Rochy Graziano, though, he does have another card out there, and it is one of the rarest cards that you're going to come across if you actually do see one. I've actually seen one in person, just one, in fact. But it's the 1948 Leaf number 50. And they say that again, there's less than 10 copies known to exist, and they don't really come up for auction all that much. But when they do, they sell for pretty good money. In 2017, REA had one a PSA 5 that sold for $72,000, and Golden Auction had a PSA 6.5 for $85,000. A lot of collectors, dealers, and historians aren't exactly sure why this card is so rare. It was pulled early on in production, and my guess is, my gut is telling me that he never signed or he had threatened the company with legal action, and he had it pulled from production. He didn't want anything, and he really doesn't have anything out there. He may have an exhibit, Eastern Exhibit Supply postcard out there. I'm not entirely sure what the deal is with that. And this one, obviously, because it's from overseas, there wasn't really anything that he could do about it. And he probably didn't even know about it, to tell you the truth, most likely. I think, though, that he did threaten to sue Leaf if it went into production. A few of these cards, obviously, they did make it out into collectors' hands, but we only know of like 10 examples. So they do go for quite a bit. And, if you see one, take a photo because you aren't going to see another one. Anyway, I wanted to tell you a little bit today about Rochy Graziano, especially his early career, and it happens to coincide with the retirement of Lou Gehrig. And you may be thinking, like, Lou Gehrig and Rochy Graziano, what's the connection here? Well, that's a very good question because Lou Gehrig in 1939, he contracted Lou Gehrig's disease, also known as ALS. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis is what he got probably in 1938. And so who knows exactly how he actually got this, but I looked into ALS, and my grandfather actually had ALS. He was a World War II veteran, a combat veteran from the, I believe, 8th Air Force. And so as of 2017, there are 81,000 cases. The first case of ALS goes back to 1824. They think, they're not entirely sure, but that looks or appears to be the first case. What ALS does is basically a death of the motor neurons in the brain and spinal cord, leading to paralysis. It's an awful way to go. And there are, I believe, three different types. When I say that, there's different types of longevity. Stephen Hawking had Lou Gehrig's disease, but his was a very, very rare case in which he contracted that when he was about 19 or 20 years old, and he had it just long enough to reach old age. So half the people who contract it only live 3 years. Well, 25% live 5 years, and then there's a 10% that live 10 years or more, like Stephen Hawking. There is a genetic link as well, and that is the SODI gene, and there's another link as well. So the SODI gene is linked to ALS, and they found that in 1994. And 90% of the cases don't have a genetic link, meaning that they're not entirely sure how most cases are contracted, either through maybe the environment or stress. And there's also a sports link as well, and it looks like most uh, of these sports players who contract Lou Gehrig's disease are actually football players, and there are actually quite a number of football players who do have or had Lou Gehrig's disease. Between 1960 and 1996, there were 375 deaths from Lou Gehrig's disease. It is 100% fatal, unfortunately. But so getting back to Lou Gehrig here, and Lou Gehrig retired in 1939, and he obviously couldn't work anymore, so he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1939, kind of like on the spot. You know, Lou Gehrig's disease was extremely rare in 1939. In any event, Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia selected Lou Gehrig to be the parole commissioner in October of 1939, and it's there where he met a very young 19-year-old Rochy Graziano, who was consistently getting into trouble. I think he had actually spent some time already in juvenile hall stealing a car. So this time he was back in the parole office, and he met with Lou Gehrig. Lou Gehrig, he knew that Rocky Graziano had practiced boxing. His father was a boxer, and young Rocky here, he ended up putting his gloves away. Lou Gehrig said to him, "Why don't you pick up the gloves again and kind of make something of yourself?" And you know, at the time, Rocky was like, "Who is this old guy telling me what to do?" But he said later on, years later, in fact, that Lou Gehrig gave him some really great advice, and he tried to kind of mentor Graziano along the way. Unfortunately, Lou Gehrig, he only lasted up until June of 1941, and he passed away at age 37. I'm probably going to talk more about Lou Gehrig. What an amazing ball player he was, and a great guy too. It's just really too bad that he has this unfortunate disease named after him. You know, I don't really want to have that disease overshadow his career, and which I think has happened. If you guys haven't seen the Pride of the Yankees, the movie from 1942 with uh, Gary Cooper. Gary Cooper, he couldn't play baseball if his life depended on it, and the the things that happened in that movie. I mean, I saw it growing up. I thought it was okay. I like Gary Cooper. He's not my favorite superstar actor of the time, but he um he made a pretty good Lou Gehrig impersonation, I have to say. but his baseball playing skills were just non-existent. Anyway, so getting back to Rochy Graziano here, I'm going to go through an obituary of his, a Irish sports page, and it's going to kind of reveal what kind of person Rochy Graziano is. He was brutal, absolutely brutal as a boxer. He's he's unlike any other kind of boxer that I've heard of before, and he was suspended a couple of times. There was a fix from 1947 involving the mafia, and that really kind of went nowhere. But he was investigated a couple of times, and eventually his record was 67, 10, and 6 draws. And of those 67 wins, 52 of them came from knockouts. That tells you he was just one tough, tough boxer. And I really wouldn't want to face him. I wouldn't want to face Rocky Marciano either, for that matter, or anybody in the ring, because I like to watch it. I don't like to actually face people in the ring. Here's the articles. I think you guys are going to find it very interesting, and I'll catch you in a minute or two. This is from the Miami Herald, May 27th, 1990. Graziano, Essence of Boxing Brutality by Bill Lyon. For most of this particular fight, Thomas Rocco Barbella, alias Rochy Graziano, had caught with unerring accuracy almost every punch thrown in his direction. He had done the catching with his face, which by the middle rounds was lumpy and smeared with scarlet. Then his opponent did a very foolish thing. He knocked Rochy Graziano down. The voice on the radio went hysterical, picking up the count. At 7, you could hear the bell, and Graziano struggled to his corner. "Oh, bad," said the grandfather, a one-armed man with a roll-your-own smoke dangling from his mouth. He leaned in closer to the radio. "Trouble?" asked the grandson fearfully. "Definitely," replied the grandfather. "For Rocky," sighed the grandfather sadly. "Uh-oh," said the grandfather, "for the other guy." In the next round, Rocky Graziano knocked his opponent colder than congealed grease. The grandfather leaned back and puffed his roll-your-own in quiet satisfaction. The grandson looked at him with renewed respect, and at the radio with awe. More than 40 years since that night, the grandfather is long gone. The grandson awaits becoming a grandfather himself, and Rocky Graziano, a genuine American primitive, is dead. He gave it up Tuesday night at the age of 68. Earlier this year, he had suffered a heart attack and then a stroke, one too from which he never recovered. And so passes one of the most savage practitioners of that Darwinian enterprise known as professional fist fighting. Rocky Graziano was the essence of boxing brutality, a broken-nosed, face-smashed nobility who made primal anger work for him. His was a fighter's face, with its parts rearranged by another man's hands. It was a face he wore proudly. He had earned every stitch. An animal was the appellation given to fighters like Rocky Graziano by the old trainer Whitey Brimstein. It was said out of respect for the fury and ferocity of Graziano brought into the ring. He trows lots of leather, Brimstein once said of Graziano with fondness. He is like an octopus. In truth, Graziano never did learn the subtleties of the sweet science, or even the elemental sequences of hooking off a jab, crossing off the hook, and uppercutting one hand after the other. No, he was mostly a brawler and a bomber who put his faith in his right hand. It could, and often did, turn around a fight with dramatic swiftness. He was best known for 3 epic championship battles with another middleweight, Tony Zale, in the late 1940s. They were fearsome bloodbaths, eagerly anticipated by fight fans who would gather around the radio in darkened living rooms and then impatiently await the arrival of grainy black and white newsreel clips at their neighborhood theaters. Some boxing academics have nominated the Muhammad Ali Joe Frazier three-set crusade as the best fistic trilogy of all time, but there are older historians who insist that for sheer sustained savagery, the three crimson-splotched Zale Graziano soul-bearers are without peer. Zale won the first and third by knockout, and Graziano the middle one with one of those thunderclap right hands, and came right in the midst of his absorbing, frightful punishment. Graziano took punches and kept on coming, and at times almost seemed to revel in the violence. The usual case for boxing as an art or science is more difficult to make when you watch films of Rochy Graziano in the ring. There was no hint of remorse, and certainly not of compassion. Asked once to describe his strength, Graziano said, "I don't discourage easy." So I'll show you a card of Rocky Graziano's opponent, Tony Zale. This is a 1947 Kellogg's Pep, and it is quite small. In fact, I'll show you just for an example here. You got the 1965 Lou Brock, and so you can see how small these things are. This isn't actually the smallest card that I'm aware of. That would be the 1930 Bagura Chocolate, the baseball series. I don't have any of those. I used to, but they were so small that I was afraid that I was going to lose them. And they're actually smaller than this card, unbelievably. But I'll show you the back of it too. It's really nothing to write home about. But if you're looking to add some players or boxers or actors that may not have a card, this one is perfect, I think. There's actually a number of Hall of Famers and Football Hall of Fame rookies in this set as well. And so you might want to keep that in mind when you're going to try to add a few Hall of Famers to your collection. Right off the bat, Bob Waterfield, his rookie is in this set, and Charlie Trippy as well. And so I think Trippy has two different cards in this set. They're actually variations, but it's actually a quite nice card. And I did a video on Charlie Trippy, who was 100 years old when he passed away. Anyway, getting back to Rocky Graziano here. So Rocky Graziano, he has a lot of stories out there, and I'm not entirely sure which one is correct and which ones are false. Uh, During his career, he was cited and investigated by the Boxing Commission for throwing fights in like 1947, and I I don't think they found anything. But by the time he retired, there was a movie out starring Paul Newman, and I've never actually seen this movie, but I hear it's really good. I'm not sure why I haven't seen it, to tell you the truth. It's on my to-do list. He's also interviewed quite a number of times as well during his lifetime. So he was personable up to a point, but again, he just didn't want to sign that contract that Leaf had, and I don't know how much money that Leaf was going to give these boxers. I've actually seen the form that the player or the boxer had to fill out, and they it's a right of privacy thing, and so Rocky Graziano just never did this. So in return, his 1948 Leaf is one of the rarest cards you're ever going to see. And again, if you guys ever do see one, take a photo because you're not going to see one again. It is, in my opinion, the 1948 Leaf Rocky Graziano. It should be worth more than it is, considering the rarity. Now, I know you have the T206 Wagner, which everything recently has sold for like $6.6 million. And are we going to see this card go for $1 million? I'm not entirely sure, to tell you the truth. It's really strange to see what cards go for $1 million and which ones don't, because you do have some modern football cards that are $1 million cards, and then you have the T206 Wagner and the 52 tops Mickey Mantles that have gone for over $1 million as well. But just because a card goes for $1 million doesn't necessarily mean that it's rare. AKA 1952 tops Mickey Mantle. In this case, this card is truly rare. Again, there's like maybe 5 to 10 cards known, and the tops, the max that I'm aware of, is $85,000. I'm not entirely sure that I would spend $85,000 on a card. I don't even like spending over $200 for a card. I have only done that once, and that was with the 67 tops Brooks Robinson. But that's a very special case, and that's actually the first time that I've ever spent over $200 for a card. So I do have a limit on the amount that I'm going to pay for a card. And again, guys, like that for me personally, I don't really care what my collection is valued at. I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it for the education and for the thrill of the hunt. Yes, I am kind of a hunter-gatherer, if you will. And I think a lot of card collectors are. It's really the thrill of the chase, and you never know what you're going to find out there too. So, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. I greatly appreciate it. Let me know what you think about Rochy Graziano, if you have any good stories about him, or if you enjoy his cards, the little or the few that are actually out there. If there's any cards of his that I've missed, let me know too, because I'd love to know. And don't be afraid to grab a few 1947 D. Cummings and Son boxing personalities. I think that's what it's called. It is famous fighters swap card is what it is. And this is number 12, as you can see. Again, the artwork is okay, but it serves a purpose, and I actually kind of do like this set. And the other thing too I wanted to mention is that 9 times out of 10, I think you're going to find these cards in really decent condition as well. The ones that I have seen have been in very, very good condition. The thing that you might want to also keep in mind is the centering on these things are not that great. But again, it's pretty sharp, and they um, they're from Glasgow, Scotland, and I don't know too many cards that have actually come out of Scotland. But again, I'll show you the back of it. Looks like this. And so, guys, once again, thank you so much for stopping by. I greatly appreciate it, and I will talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye.